Hello and welcome to the video. I'm sat very far away from the camera today because this is the only way that I can try and get this thing into shot. Hopefully this is giving you an idea of how big the new T2 CRUZA from HEEWING is. Now I'm a fan of the original HEEWING T1. You've seen it on the channel loads and loads of times. When it was introduced, it was really groundbreaking. It was a little cheap twin designed around FPV. I've got 3 of them in different configurations, including VTOL setups. So I was really excited to hear when HEEWING were going to bring out a T2. Now there was loads of speculation because HEEWING, when they released it, did something really weird. They went to their resellers and said, oh, would you like to order the T2? But then wouldn't tell the resellers what the T2 was, wouldn't even release any images or specifications. So I know lots of the resellers that I normally deal with kind of went, no, until they could see what they were actually going to be buying to resell. So it was a bit of an odd launch, and I'm not sure why HEEWING were being so reticent to let the resellers know what they were actually going to bring out. Maybe they were worried about information being leaked. But I think most of us guessed that the T2 was going to bear some resemblance to the T1. And you know what? It kind of absolutely does. Now this isn't a cheap thing by any stretch of the imagination. This is about £270 in the PNP configuration that I have here that I'm about to show you, or about $330. So this is definitely not aimed at those of you that like to park fly. And I don't think this is a park flyer. I think this has lots of room for very large batteries, and we'll see how efficient it is. So for those of you that want a larger model that like to fly further away, I guess this is kind of what you've been waiting for. Now there has been some kind of confusion about what you actually get in the box when you order the PNP. There has been videos about some of the pre-production units. This is actually a retail unit that I have here. If you order one, this is what you're going to get, with a couple of exceptions. First of all is I have got the Sunny Sky motors on this. These Sunny Sky motors are 2216/12 730 kV units designed for a 6S LiPo setup. Apparently talking to some of the retailers who are starting to get these in now to sell here in the UK, they are shipping them with 2 different motors, either these here or a slightly different brand. They're still both HEEWING branded, but I think the KV is very slightly different. But in terms of flying performance, it should be more or less the same. But it's interesting that HEEWING haven't just got one motor manufacturer. I guess they're dual sourcing just to make sure they can always guarantee they can get the motors for the model. The other thing that's slightly different is that in my kit, I got 2 gifts, which I wasn't expecting. They are the servos for the slap. This thing underneath does have the flap cut in. Don't worry, we'll have a closer look in a moment. You do need to install the servos and the control linkage horns. I got both of those things in the kit that I got here. So as I'm recording this, I haven't yet fitted it. HEEWING are in the process of writing a document that explains exactly how that should be done. So as you can see, this is a big girl. This is definitely bigger and slightly heavier than I expected. So let me show you how it comes and go through what comes in the boxes, and then we'll do a close-up overview of all the different pieces. Because things like, you know, the tail is held in with a catch, and when you pop it back in, there's a lovely positive click. And that kind of attention to detail is really welcome. But there's a couple of things on here that I'm not as excited about. In terms of the unboxing, it's very similar to the T1, with the obvious exception being that the box is far bigger. Inside that big box there are 3 smaller boxes with the body, the wings and all the other pieces. So be aware that you're going to need quite a large space in order to unpack this thing, never mind put it together. In terms of the specs, I'll talk about those while I run this video of me taking this stuff out of the box so you can see how it's all packed up. The headlines from HEEWING about this is that it is fully modular for quick assembly and disassembly, and it absolutely is. Everything is toolless, and I'm a massive fan of that. I hate it when people expect us to do things with little screwdrivers or hex drivers and little self-tapping screws in the middle of a field. If you drop those into the grass, you'll never see them again. The way that the wings quick release from the body is different from the T1, if you're familiar with that. The T1 has the little clips. These have little rotating connectors at the end. The main body has an electronics deck. That is to do a couple of things. One is to help with the stiffness of the fuselage, particularly around that wing area, but it's also a place for you to put your flight controller and pieces on. There is a removable front nose with a fan mounting spot for VTX cooling. We'll come back to that. I think that is an absolutely ridiculous thing to do on something that's going to be flying through the air, is think that the way to cool a VTX is by putting a fan on it. No, all you need to do is have somewhere for the air to come in and somewhere for the air to come out, and it kind of handles it itself. There are built-in split flaps. The servos aren't included by default, but I actually got them with my unit here. I don't know whether that's something they're just doing for a certain number of units, but I got the servos and stuff. I'll show you those in a moment. And there is a recess underneath to allow you to do something like mount landing gear or floats, but neither are included in the kit. Wingspan on this is 1.2 meters. The length is just under 1.1 meters. Motors on this are 2216. Again, the ones I have on here are the Sunny Sky 221612 730 kV units designed for a 6S power setup, but be aware that there are different ones here, so you might get a slightly different setup. There is the propeller, which is an 8-inch propeller. You only get 2 in the box. The servos are all HEEWING 041S metal geared digital servos all round, which is lovely. It's nice to see them. They're a little bit smaller than I expected for a model of this size. It's made of EPP. Recommended takeoff weight for this thing is anything between 1.5 to 2.5 kilograms, so you can make this into quite a chunky bear. Recommended battery size is going to be a 6S LiPo. 2,000 to 20,000 milliamp hours, and that I guess is partly who this is aimed at, those who like to put an awful lot of battery into a model like this. But interesting choice for 6S. Again, we'll come back to that in a moment. Package size, as you can see from the video I'm running here, is huge. So, you need to make sure that your dining room table is clear to be able to unpack it. 620 by 420 by 240 millimeters. Couple of points about putting this thing together. It isn't particularly difficult. There is a very rudimentary manual. It's a two-sided glossy printed thing, and there needs to be far more detail in that HEEWING than you show here. Hopefully most of the people who are going to be buying this aren't going to be new pilots. I'm sure the price point will put off most new pilots. But if you've had a little bit of experience putting something like this together, you'll know what you're doing. The controls, horns and linkages, as you've seen, are not attached from the factory, so you're going to have to do that. There are control linkage lengths in the manual. And I did get 2 GIFs. They were labelled as GIFs in the box. So I got the servos for the flaps and also the flap linkage bits and pieces too. I've asked HEEWING if there is a manual or a description of how you put the flap servos in. There isn't one at time of recording, but they are going to release a video. So let's go over the design of the individual pieces. Let's start with the body. Now, in terms of the body, the internal space is very large and it's set out as one big compartment, which I was a little bit surprised at, because with all of this room, they do have the ability to segment this and make a battery compartment and separate the electronics and do some other pieces too, and that's what lots of other designs do at the moment. However, HEEWING have taken the unusual decision just to leave it as one big massive space. I guess the benefit of that is it means that when you are using particularly large, heavy, high capacity 6S LiPo batteries, you can put it wherever it needs to be to get the center of gravity in the right place. There are recesses on the top of the front, which has this little cover. This is where you're supposed to put the little 20mm cooling fan. Again, come back to that in a minute. And it also has the same kind of action camera mount that the T1 had, which is an interesting choice considering the amount of real estate that we have in the nose. At the back, there is the same kind of little cover for the GPS to go in, pretty much the same as the T1. The connectors in the tail are nicely hidden away, and there is this little spring-loaded catch. As you put the tail in, there's a nice positive click to let you know that the tail has located up properly. No guides for wiring up into the nose, and no looms to take your signals from your FPV cameras and power action cameras and stuff already in the body. And that brings me on to the nose. The nose is probably the thing that I'm most disappointed about. It is a very odd design here. It's just a scaled up version of the T1. There's no thought about airflow or layout for the modern HD FPV systems here, particularly those that run very hot. Where is the pan and tilt support? Where is the support for me to put an action camera mount? Because this is so big, all of those things could have been considered and could be available here out the box. But if I want to do any of those, I've got to reach for the X-Acto and the Yoo-Hoo Paw. It's held in place as well on these large 2 wooden supports with 2 screws in the side. This is the only part of the model that isn't toolless removal, and I think that's a mistake. No connector to the body to allow for easy removal. That also would have been useful to have some kind of connector like they have in the wing to supply power and send signals to and from an FPV HD system. That would have been a nice idea at this price point, and it's not very aerodynamic. This is a large model. If you double the size of a component in airflow, it increases the drag by significantly more than just 2 times. So why HEEWING didn't take the opportunity to provide a nice aerodynamic nose with thought about pan and tilt, modern HD systems with cooling and action camera support, I'm just really scratching my head. However, checking with HEEWING about this, it does sound like there are more noses potentially planned, and I'm sure the community will be designing lots of 3D printable versions that will allow you to put whatever setups you want here. But I think that kind of stuff should have been included in the box when you get it at this price point. The wings are very sturdy and have an interesting aerofoil shape. There are the larger connectors that go into the body, similar to the T1, so as you push them home, they will make all of the electrical connections that you need. They're held in place this time by rotating clips rather than thumb screws, and that seems to be pretty secure. We'll see how that handles a crash. 3 opening hatches on the underside help you get into the centre of the wing for things like servo setup, servo replacement and access to the wiring as well. And there are these built-in flaps at the bottom, and you can get the optional servos. I got them in mine along with the linkages, but that is being marked as a gift, so maybe that's only for the initial run. But having those flaps is a good idea. If you're going to run this at the heavier end of the spec, that kind of 2.5 kilogram, having flaps for an approach is going to be very handy. There are lights in the wingtips. I can't see any controls for turning them on and off, so you're stuck with what you have there. Interestingly, there isn't any access to those, so if you wanted to swap them out for strobes or different colours, that isn't something that they thought about. And the wings use 2 spars for rigidity going through the body either side of the flight controller shelf. The tail and boom is where some of the coolest design things are. The linkages on the tail for the vertical stabilizer, the rudder, and also for the elevator do need to be installed just like on the wings, and there is the slightly unusual setup where the servo at the front has this nice anodized piece to rotate the vertical stabilizer. So yes, the T2 absolutely does have a rudder, and it's a big rudder too. It's moving the entire vertical surface. The boom plugs into the tail, similar to the body. This time it has a guiding keyway and it clicks into position again with a nice satisfying click. I do like the fact that on this end it has the keyway to just help you locate it. I do love the way that this all breaks down for transport and storage. This is a large plane when it's put together, and they've really thought about it. There are a number of things that I like here. I do like the way it breaks down for transport and all the time and effort they've put into trying to make it easier to transport and then to snap together toollessly when you're at the field. I like how the servo linkages have been moved to the top of the wing on the wings. That was something that some people complained about. I've never had an issue with it on my T1, but some people were not very unhappy about that. And there is absolutely huge space inside the body for whichever battery and flight controller stack you want to put in there. There were a number of things that I was expecting from the T2 CRUZA that aren't here on this version of the model. First of all is the body is very deep. This is a scaled up T1. I would have preferred it if they'd have scaled up the body in terms of the side to side and front to back, but actually reduced the depth a little bit just to try and save a little bit of that drag that you're going to get from having such a big body. Or be a bit smarter about how you design the nose, give us something a lot more aerodynamic. That nose is one of the things that's really bugging me about this. It is such a missed opportunity. I would have also liked them to be a little bit smarter about using the space inside, rather than just give us this cavernous mount with the flight controller mounting bracket in it. Have a think about where the flight controller and GPS could be. Maybe have those at the front of the compartment, and then have the space underneath the wings where the central gravity is available for the batteries, and have some kind of protection for the flight controllers and stuff at the front in case of a crash where the battery would slide forward. And I would have liked the option to run it on both 6S and 8S as well, using two 4S packs. Checking with HEEWING, unfortunately the power system in here and the way it's set up will not support 8S, so that is a bit of a shame. I guess the single question that it's left me with after unboxing and taking a first look is, who is this aimed at exactly? Over £270 for this PNP model isn't cheap, and if you're going to put a large 6S LiPo battery in it, and an HD system, an action camera, a flight controller system, you're going to have quite a lot of stuff in the sky. Is it for those pilots who want a larger model for line of sight flying? Is it for those pilots who want to do long range or endurance type flying where they can fit a massive battery? It's not clear, and interestingly, asking that question of HEEWING, they didn't have a good answer either. There is lots of competition for models like this from MFE and others, and I'm interested to see how this actually flies. Maybe when I fly it, it will suddenly dawn on me exactly who a plane like this is going to be aimed at. So stay tuned. I will build it out, we'll take it flying, and we'll see how it actually performs in the sky. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch my videos and find them useful, then please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. If you really like what I'm doing here, you can become a Patreon and support the time I spend helping others and get access to lots of exclusive benefits. Link is in the video description. Remember that all the videos on the channel are organized into playlists, so you can easily use those playlists to find all the videos on a subject that you are interested in. Add Painless 360 to your searches on Google and YouTube, and it'll help you find my content for any particular topic. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy flying.